Welcome, welcome. We're just letting the attendees in. So if you're joining us, we're just going to give it a few seconds as the webinar is letting everybody join. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? I know you can't answer me, but hi. Okay, I'm going to start out. I am Krista Nay with Episcopal Communities and Services, and I will introduce our presenter in just a moment. Welcome, everybody. Those who just joined, we are hosting our second of a 3 series, a taste, sound, and sight. So this is our sound with audiologist Dr. Sunni McBride. And all of your cameras and your microphones have been turned off. So we can't see you, you can see us. We will be using the chat function. So I encourage you, we've left about 10 minutes after the presentation to answer any questions that you might have. And I'm assuming there will be several. So I encourage you to, throughout or as you have them, go ahead and use the chat function. So if you take your cursor, scroll down to the bottom or hover your cursor on the bottom of your screen, you will see an icon that says chat. If you click on that, there's 2 options when that opens up. There's the panelist, so you can send the panelists a question or a comment, and then there's the attendees. If you're going to ask a question, we ask that you use the all attendees tab, because that way people can see what your questions are. We're not repeating ourselves and that sort of thing. So Sunny, if you go to the next slide. Again, I just wanted everybody to know that you're welcome by Episcopal Communities and Services, that's ECS. ECS has 4 communities that you may be familiar with. And on the next slide, there we go. We've got all in Southern California. Starting in Orange County, we have the Covington, which is located in Aliso, Viejo. And then going up, we've got Canterbury in Rancho's Palos, Verdes. And then we have Montecedro, which is our newest community that we built about 6 years ago now in Altadena. And then we just acquired 12 Oaks, and that's in Glendale, in the Montrose area of Glendale. So if you haven't been to any of our communities, or we are open for tours, we are 99% vaccinated by residents. In just a couple months, the staff will be 100% vaccinated. So although, you know, some people in the media are saying you don't have to wear a mask, we have to follow CDC guidelines and the health department guidelines. So we are still masked, but we're vaccinated and open for tours. People are moving in. Certain accommodations are going quickly. So if you're thinking about it, I encourage you to come in and get on the waiting list and set yourself a place in line. So we are again ready to welcome you to our community. We'll be doing on-site events probably in the late summer, so we'll continue to do Zoom events like this, but we will also be inviting you to visit us live as well. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Sunni McBride. Melinda is a doctor of audiology. She's a local Southern California girl growing up in Inglewood, California. Dr. McBride received her undergraduate and master's degree from BYU. She received the Doctor of Audiology degree from the University of Florida in 2000. She was one of the first Doctor of Audiologist recipients in California. She founded South Bay Hearing and Balance Center in 2007. Dr. McBride and her team of specialists have created a dynamic, award-winning audiology hearing aid practice located in Torrance, California. She and her team of 6 doctors of audiology have been voted South Bay's best audiologist every year since 2008. In 2013, Dr. McBride acquired Mission Audiology in Mission Viejo by the Covington and began helping the patients in South Orange County. She feels that it's important to raise audiology awareness in the community. She has been co-sponsored of the Daily Breeze Senior Aging Expo. She has been on a hearing mission to Mexico and China. She visits assisted living facilities in the area to provide hearing care for many with less mobility. She is on the board of Providence Little Company of Mary Foundation. Dr. McBride enjoys public speaking and teaching about hearing issues. She has been a guest lecturer for lyric hearing aids around the world, speaking in Germany, France, Switzerland, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and Brazil. Sunni loves being a grandmother of 12 grandchildren. She also enjoys hiking and skiing. She is also part of the Episcopal Communities and Services family, as her mother is a resident at the Canterbury. So with that, I'm going to turn over the microphone to Dr. McBride. And again, I encourage you all to use the chat function, and we'll have questions and answers at the end. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Krista. Welcome, everyone. We're going to be talking about my favorite topic today, hearing and communication. These are some of the things that we're going to be covering. We'll kind of go over the basics, and then we'll talk about some of the surprising facts and statistics about hearing challenges, maybe address some of the myths that people express about hearing. We'll talk about exciting technology. A lot of you wonder what's going on out there in the hearing care world. There's a lot of competing messages. We'll talk about what it's like to go see an expert provider. And then at the end, if you have questions, we'll be happy to answer them for you. So let's hold on to your seats and let's go. This is kind of a diagram about the anatomy of the ear. We're all familiar with this part of the ear. That's the outer ear that we can see. Its funny shape actually helps to funnel sound. So the sound waves are all directed down into the ear canal. The ear canal conducts the sound waves down to the eardrum. Hopefully we can see that too if your ear isn't full of wax. The eardrum vibrates with the little tiny sound waves. And behind the eardrum are the three little bones, the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. They convert sound waves into pressure waves that go into the inner ear or the cochlea. This cochlea is the smallest bones in the body, are here in the ear. And the cochlea looks like a snail shell. It's embedded in the skull. It's like two tubes filled with fluid, and they're lined with little tiny hair cells. And these vibrations vibrate the fluid and then the hair cells in the inner ear or cochlea. And as the hair cells vibrate, they trigger nerve responses which travel up the auditory nerves. They cross over and actually stimulate the brain on the opposite side of the ear. So we have the outer ear, the middle ear, the inner ear, and the nerves leading up to the brain. Most people have hearing loss in the inner ear or cochlea. Some people can have earwax, some people can have fluid in their ears, but probably 80% of what we treat are inner ear hearing loss. Some people say, oh, I have nerve deafness, you can't do anything about it. No, that's exactly what we do. We treat nerve deafness. So if you've ever heard that, please don't get confused, okay? So we talked about the little hair cells that line the cochlea. They're lined up in very precise rows, the outer hair cells and the inner hair cells. And as the vibrations come through, they vibrate, kind of like seaweed in the ocean as it rocks back and forth as the vibrations come through. Unfortunately, as we age or are exposed to noise or other agents, these little hair cells can shrivel up and die. And then we only have a few left standing. So it takes more and more volume to trigger them to fire the nerve that's underneath that goes on up to the brain. That's why we have to turn the sounds up. This is an anatomical cross section. These are the little hair cells that we were talking about. There's a membrane on top that wiggles as they vibrate. All these little purple dots that you see are the nerves going up to the brain. And when you see someone who's had hearing loss for many years, these areas will be white as the nerves die back too. So hearing loss is not just something that affects the ear, it affects the transmission system that goes up to the brain. One thing that's really important to realize is that we listen with our ears. Our ears are where the sound is picked up, but we need more than that. We need our brain to help us understand and make sense of all those vibrations. So we listen with our ears, but we understand with our brain. The brain is the critical computer that makes sense of everything. So we're all familiar with the process of aging in our bodies. Aging doesn't just make you lose volume. Some people think, well, all I do is I'm missing volume. I have to turn the volume up. If I just turn the volume up, everything will be better again. But that's not really how hearing works. There are many subtle things going on in the brain. So for example, an important function of the brain is to tell where sounds are coming from. You need two ears to figure out where the voice is. And when someone calls your name, you turn usually and look at them. And that directs your attention to the person who is speaking at you. And as you attend, your brain sharpens the focus. If you lose the ability to tell where sounds are coming from, if you're in a group situation and you're sitting around a table and four other people are talking, then the sounds get mushed together because your brain can't pick out where the sound is coming from. You can't attend. And so you lose that ability to really focus. Another thing the brain does is actually squelch the background noise so that that voice that you're trying to listen to, usually in a younger brain, that voice perks right up. And, I went to a Dodger game last week and I could hear the person next to me, even though the organ was playing and everything was going on. But as we get older, that becomes much more challenging just because the neural processing is changing. Another thing we all notice is how our brains slow the processing rate. How many of you have been around grandchildren who talk so fast? Oh my gosh, they talk so fast. But it's really your brain that is getting slower and can't handle the message that's coming through so quickly. And as I said earlier, the death of the little cochlear hair cells ultimately leads to the death of the nerves over time. And so it's kind of like sound going through Swiss cheese. Some of it gets up there and some of it doesn't. So all of this complicates the hearing process. It's not just a matter of volume. It takes, when people first begin to suspect they have hearing loss, a lot of people just try to get by. I know when I started to not see clearly, I would just squint my eyes or hold my menu out a little bit farther. We do these compensating behaviors. And the same is true with hearing loss. Maybe you cock your head a little bit, or you lean in, or you ask someone to repeat what they say. It takes sometimes years before people are saying, all right, this is enough hearing loss. I need to do something about it. I need to see what's going on. Sometimes that can take 5 to 7 years. What are the changes that are going on during that time period when you have untreated hearing loss? We're going to touch on these things, the physical consequences of untreated hearing loss, the psychological changes that are going on. What are some of the cognitive changes going on in our brain, and how does it affect our relationships? It's all tied together. So did you know that as you have hearing loss, hearing becomes physically more trying to hear? It's tiring to imagine if you can't hear and you have to focus on every syllable coming out of somebody's mouth as you try to pay attention. That's fatiguing. Oftentimes ringing or tinnitus accompanies hearing loss. It's not that the tinnitus causes the hearing loss, it's usually the other way around. The dead hair cells cause the ringing in our ears. Some people find it so distracting that they're annoyed, they get frustrated, they can't focus, they can't sleep at night. Did you know there's a relationship between untreated hearing loss and how often you fall? And so we see an increased number of falls with the more severe hearing loss that a person has. Your blood pressure can go up. It's tied to diabetes and high blood pressure. It doesn't cause the diabetes causes hearing loss. So all these physical things are related together. Probably the biggest challenges are the psychological consequences of hearing loss. Most of us have had long periods of being home alone during the COVID isolation periods. So we're beginning to feel what it's like to be isolated, to not be able to connect to our family and to our friends, and to not be able to go out. Well, this is what people with more severe hearing loss feel. They feel separate from other people. It's like they can see the world going on around them, but they don't feel like they're a part of it. It's just easier to withdraw than to try to pay attention because it's so draining. Some people are really embarrassed that they have hearing loss. They have difficulty concentrating. How can you remember or think about something if you didn't hear it in the first place? People can be depressed or frustrated. All of these things, can accompany untreated hearing loss. Probably the scariest thing is, what is it doing to our brain in thinking? We'll go into this in more detail. When I hear a word or a sentence, my brain just hears it and makes sense of it. But when you have untreated hearing loss, if someone said the word dig or pig, I have to go, okay, what was the sentence about? Or cat or bat? Well, that's an easier one. Cat with a C or bat with a B. Well, if it was get the milk and feed you probably said cat. If we're talking about baseball, you probably said bat. Now your brain makes these little judgments instantaneously, but when it does that, it's taking brain power to do those things instead of using the brain power for memory or other things. And so it begins to affect our cognition. And we all know that preserving cognition is the key to living a long and happy life. I see a lot of couples and family members when they come to my office talking about hearing loss. And so many family members are exhausted with trying to deal with their family members' hearing loss. They're tired of shouting. They're tired of repeating. And sometimes the stubborn family member says, oh, I'm fine. They can just talk louder for a while. Yeah, people will talk louder for about 10 or 15 seconds, and then they go back to their soft little voices. And so it's really unfair to put the burden all on the other person. I've had wives that harumph and say, well, he only hears what he wants to hear. No, he really can't hear everything you're saying, man. Or I have men that say, she just mumbles. If she would just speak clearly, I could hear her better. And I say, no, she's speaking pretty good American English. I can hear her really clearly. I think the problem is in your brain. Or how many times does a hearing impaired person say, oh, excuse me, what did you say? And the family is so tired of repeating, they just go, oh, never mind. So here is a person who wanted to be engaged in the conversation, and the family members just ignoring them, just pushing them off. And that gets to be deflating over time. So anyways, it really affects relationships. When someone in the family has a hearing loss, the whole family has a hearing loss. So let's dig a little bit more deeply into hearing loss in the brain, because this is where all the magic takes place. You have to understand that hearing loss is a neurodegenerative condition. What does that mean? It means the neurons and the brain tissue are shrinking and degenerating. It causes isolation, depression, shrinkage, and that cognitive overload that we were talking about that can ultimately lead to dementia. Now, people sometimes think we're using scare tactics, but the statistics and the research shows that the greater degree of hearing loss you have, the more likely you are to develop dementia in your lifetime. Even having a mild hearing loss, which most people might say, oh, I'll just get by, increases your risk of dementia 200 times, 200%. Moderate, 300%, severe, 500%. So it's just the greater the hearing loss, the greater the risk. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the studies talking about this. We won't get too far into the weeds, but the first study focused on 639 men and women who started off not being affected by dementia or cognitive decline. They were followed for 12 years. They found that mild hearing loss gave you a slight increase in the dementia risk, but it increased noticeably among those with moderate to severe hearing loss. So for older adults, more than 36 of the dementia risk was linked to hearing loss. It's interesting, if you look at all the causes of dementia, one might be your age. Well, you can't do something about your age, right? And so you look at all these different factors. The number one controllable factor is untreated hearing loss. It's more than smoking or lack of exercise or any of those things. It is the number one controllable risk factor that affects cognitive decline. I love this slide. It shows what is happening to your brain with hearing loss. On the right, you see an MRI and it shows a normal brain. And on the left, you see a brain with hearing loss. And you can see the shrinkage that takes place in the brain. And so at Johns Hopkins and the National Institute of Aging, they followed 126 people. They had yearly MRIs for up to 10 years. And this is an illustration of the changes that they saw taking place in the brain. Another study out of the University of Texas, El Paso showed that when people used hearing aids, it helped to improve their cognitive function. Now, I always tell people, I can't make you 20 years old again, right? That's not possible. But any measurable improvement that we can make in cognition is going to help, even stabilizing. I love it when I've been doing this now long enough. I have people that I've seen now for years and years and years. If we watch their hearing loss drop, but if their speech understanding stays the same, then we've got a win going for us because we're preserving the brain's ability to understand speech. It may have to be at a louder level, but at least you can understand them. It makes me so sad when people have waited to get their hearing improved to a point where their brain is deteriorated. They can't understand no matter how loud I put it in. So, the sooner the better that you deal with it, the more we can preserve that brain function. Neurotechnology is a term that we use to talk about the newer generation of hearing instruments. In the past, older hearing instruments just took all the sound and they made it louder. And any of you who have experienced older technology hearing aids know that you don't really want to hear everything equally. You don't want to hear all that background noise. You don't want to hear dropping pots and pans. You don't want to hear a lot of those things. Neurotechnology not only separates sound, but it tries to give you the things that your brain is missing. Remember, we talked about telling where sound is coming from. The way the microphones and the software works, it helps now to improve your localization. It helps to squelch that background noise. It tries to do what your brain can't do anymore. It tries to do that to the sound before it even gets to your brain. Neurotechnology hearing aids are just marvelous with all of the advancements that they've been able to bring into the software and design of hearing instruments. Some people ask me, well, what's an audiologist? That's kind of an odd term. You don't hear that talked about a lot in conversation. And so I like to do a comparison. Most people go to the eye doctor all the time. As my mother said, your eyes start to go bad in your 40s. We can't avoid it if you want to see, although I know some people who don't wear their glasses and should. But an ophthalmologist is a medical eye doctor who performs surgery and prescribes drugs. An optometrist is a clinical eye doctor, and they test your eyes and they get you the glasses, contacts, whatever you need to be able to see clearly. And a similar comparison can be made in the hearing field. An ear, nose, and throat doctor with the fancy name of an otolaryngologist is the medical doctor who performs surgery prescribes drugs, takes care of your medical conditions. An audiologist is a clinical ear doctor. We test the whole hearing system. Our job is to figure out what's causing that hearing loss. Is it a plug of wax? Are the bones stiffening up? Are the hair cells dead? And we have a whole battery of tests that we can do to figure out what's causing your hearing loss. And then we can provide remediation for you, rehabilitation through hearing instruments, accessories, and whatever else it takes to optimize your hearing. So some people wonder, well, how do I know? Is it time for me to go get my hearing tested? We like to think that people over the age of 50 should get their hearing tested just to get a baseline, and then follow up every year or two with follow-up hearing screenings to see if that's changing. That would be the optimum health situation. A lot of people don't do that. They ignore it until they can't ignore it anymore. So things like, does your spouse complain about the TV? Do you think people mumble, speak too softly? All of these little questions that we ask here. Do you ask people to repeat what they say? Do you have trouble on the phone? All these are kind of little signs that, and a lot of times people go, well, I know I can hear. It's just sometimes that I can't hear things. And that's true because if you look at this chart of hearing with the blue and red dots and things, the left side of the chart are the low frequencies. The right side of the chart where it falls off are the high frequencies. Oftentimes your good hearing is in the low and mid frequencies. And so you always know when people are talking to you. You hear the voice, it's hello, how are you, I love you. Those are all low frequency sounds. And oftentimes people have very good hearing in that range. But the high frequencies are where we hear the consonants of sound, the little S and the T, and sounds that make a difference and give the distinctness and the clarity to the speech. And so if you're missing those little sounds, then it all sounds mushy and mumbly and because you're not hearing everything clearly. So just because you can hear some things well doesn't mean that you don't have hearing loss. So what can you expect when you go to see an audiologist? Some people wonder, well, should I go to a ear, nose, and throat doctor first? No, not really, because for the most part, an ear doctor is just going to send you to an audiologist to get your hearing tested. If you come to us first, we can go through all of the things that we talk about here, and along the way, as we determine where your hearing loss is, it also helps us determine if you need to go see an ear, nose, and throat specialist. So if you start with an audiologist, it may save you a trip. So some places you can go in the world and they do kind of a quick and dirty hearing test, and it takes about 10 minutes if you're cooperative to just see how loud you can hear every sound. But there's so much more to a complete hearing consultation than just identifying what you hear well and what you don't. When you come to an audiologist like we do at South Bay Hearing or Mission Audiology, we want to get to know you as a whole person, because your hearing affects you, your family, your lifestyle. It affects everything. And so we want to really find out from you where your challenges are. And so we'll be asking you a lot of questions about situations that give you challenges. We want to do kind of a thorough health review, because there are so many things that are linked to hearing loss. You know, we want to be aware of those. We want to thoroughly inspect your ears to see if it's just earwax. I've had a lot of people come in and say, I think it's just earwax. And I say, no, I can see all the way down to the eardrum. Sorry, it's not. And so then we move on. Or sometimes we do. We clean the wax out of the ears. So we can get a good test. Once again, with a hearing consultation, we want to check the whole hearing system. And we can check the outer ear by looking at it. We have measurements to see if there's any fluid behind the eardrum. We can test those inner hair cells to see where they have died off. And then we have tests that inform us about the integrity of the nerves going up to the brain. You know, how is your speech understanding? How do you perform in background noise? All those complex things test what's going on with the nerves going up to the brain. Are there any red flags that we need to send you to a physician for? Those are very clearly specified, and so we know what we're looking for. Once we kind of go through that process and explain everything to you, I always, if it's appropriate, I always like to put hearing instruments on people to do several things. First off, we want to get them hearing better so that we can talk to them more easily and they will remember what we say to them because they can actually hear it. That's important. A lot of people have no idea what hearing instruments look like, sound like, feel like. We all have misperceptions about big clunky hearing aids behind the ears. Things have changed over the years. They're not like that at all. We want to show you what the software looks like. We want to verify the performance of the hearing aids in your ear. And we do that by taking little measurements. We stick a little tube in the ear right next to the hearing aid where the sound comes out. So we can measure how the sound responds in your ear. That's how we personalize the settings for your ears. Some people have teeny tiny, skinny little hard ears. Other people have giant caverns of soft tissue. And that all affects the sound as it leaves the hearing aid and as it goes down to the eardrum. You can take people who have the same exact looking hearing loss on our chart, and the way they perceive the sound is totally different because of the size and shape of the ear canal, the brain processing that's going on. And that's why, you know, you're going to be hearing a lot now about you can buy a hearing aid on the internet. You can go to a big box and just buy something and put it on your ear. But how does anybody customize it to what you really need? I mean, if you like to go to Las Vegas and throw your money at something to see if you win the jackpot, then go ahead. But if you want to use science to help you get the best hearing that you can and to get the most out of your investment, then you should really go to see an audiologist. We'll discuss the features of the hearing aids. We'll talk about the pricing of hearing aids. There are hearing aids that cost everything from very little up to, you know, if you need a cochlear implant, it could be, you know, $20,000, $30,000, which fortunately Medicare pays for things like that. So there's a huge range when you talk about price and technology. I remember I've had some engineers come in and they want something like, you know, how you compare cars. Well, how fast does it go 0 to 60? Or what's the braking distance? You know, they want little factoids that you can compare on a chart. But hearing technology is much more sophisticated than that. And so it's our job as audiologists to understand the evolution of the technology as it comes out and to match what your hearing needs are with the technology that's available. So that's a job of a good audiologist. We help you select technology. Usually at another visit, we actually get the hearing aids on and we put them on you. We do our real ear measurements again to make sure they're customized right for you. We let you go out and wear the hearing instruments, and then we have you back for visits and we do real world adjustments. Because guess what? When you first start to wear a hearing instrument and your brain first wakes up, it's like, oh my gosh, that is so loud. And over about a week or two, the brain adapts and your brain learns how to make sense of all the things that it's been deprived of in the past. I love it when I turn hearing aids down and then a few months later, my patients come back to me and say, all right, I'm ready, give me more sound. And I'm like, yes, your brain is waking up. Let's keep doing it. So, and one thing that's very important is you're going to need follow-up care over the life of the hearing instrument. These instruments are delicate, digital, electronic pieces of equipment, and they can get clogged, they can get dirty, they can get rattled. We know how to clean them, how to care for them, how to get down deep inside, how to troubleshoot. If you buy something on the internet, you're taking care of yourself. You know, who's going to pop off the back of the hearing aid and vacuum out the screens over the microphones or things like that? We pride ourselves in the aftercare and service that we provide our patients because they're going to need it over time to keep those hearing aids working as well as they did when you first purchased them. So what's the difference between going to a big box store and visiting an audiologist? You know, big box stores sell a lot of hearing aids and people are satisfied with some of them. But I won't go down this list, but you can't get custom hearing aids at big box stores. You can't use your insurance at big box stores. The aftercare and the time that we spend with people, it's just not there. It's like anything else in life. You get what you pay for. If you have a simple hearing loss that's easy to just slap something on and you don't have a lot of social needs, you could probably get by with what you can get at a big box store. But if you need the best that technology can provide because your hearing is challenging, and if you need the help and the service and the professional fittings that will optimize and personalize these things for you, then we recommend that you go to a good audiologist. So let's talk about technology because that's what's really exciting. So this is a device called the Lyric hearing instrument. It's teeny tiny. You can see by that comparison on her finger. It's made with yellow foam. It's really fun when doctors first look in the ear and see this yellow thing in their ear. They wonder what it is. It's built around a battery and processor core. We clean the ear, measure the ear, insert the Lyric so it sits about 4 millimeters from the eardrum. So it's a deep insertion. And then we leave it there. It's like wearing a contact lens of your ear. Once it's on, you don't have to take it out until the battery dies. And usually that's in 2 or 3 months. So for the next 2 or 3 months, you hear day and night. It's great if you have someone that you're worried about in the middle of the night, you've got to be able to hear them. It's great for people who have poor dexterity because they don't put the hearing aid in and out. When the battery dies, you come see us, we pull it out of your ear, we throw it away, we program a new one and put it back in and say, see you in 2 to 3 months. You can shower with it. You will never lose it. So if someone has memory issues and they're always losing their hearing aids, once again, we put it inside and it stays put. So the Lyric is not readily available everywhere, but it is available at South Bay Hearing and at Mission Audiology. As they say, I've been a spokesperson for this hearing instrument. For people that find it comfortable, it's a marvelous solution. And with it, as with all of our hearing aids, if you're interested, go try it on. We'll put it in. You might be surprised what it feels like and how good it sounds. We always have trial periods so that you can change your mind and go to something else if it's not comfortable for you. So there are so many choices. What is best for me? In the upper left corner over here, you'll see these teeny tiny itsy bitsy little teeny weeny hearing aids. That's what everybody wants when they walk in the door. I want that teeny tiny thing that nobody will see and no one will know that I have. Well, that really may not be the best choice for you. Do you have good dexterity? Is your hearing loss compatible with blocking your ear with a little earplug? Or maybe you would be better served by having a hearing instrument that has what we call an open tip in it. This allows not only the air to go inside, but it allows some of the low frequencies to go in. So someone who has good hearing in the low frequencies and has a high frequency hearing loss will be much more comfortable wearing this type of hearing aid than they will this type of hearing aid. So that's what you and your audiologist need to talk about. What is something that you want, but then what is something that's appropriate? This is a very interesting hearing instrument down here. It's small in the ear, but it has a little wire that curls around under this edge up here and tucks in the groove up there. One manufacturer makes that. It allows an in the ear type of hearing aid with much more high frequency sounds and a lot of added features than you can get with this. You don't have Bluetooth or any of the wireless things that we'll be talking about. So lots of different options to choose from. Rechargeability is a big thing now. You can get hearing aids where you don't ever have to change a battery. You just put the hearing aids in the little box. And in the morning, you take them out and the batteries can last 25 to 30 hours. So you have plenty of batteries for the whole day. It's marvelous. We love rechargeable hearing aids. They're mostly just in the behind the ear model. There is one company who makes a custom molded in the ear that's rechargeable, but there's only one company that does that right now. Hearing aids are going to be changing. One of the amazing things that hearing aids are going to be able to do from some manufacturers, they're going to be tracking your health. You know how you can count your steps on your Apple Watch? Well, you can have a hearing aid that will count your steps. It can tell when you fall and send out an alert to your family members. It can beep reminders in your ear. It can do what they call transcription to phone. So say you have a lot of hearing challenges and it's hard for you to follow the conversation. If you have this feature turned on, it will print the text of what somebody said on your phone so you can read it along with just hearing it. You can even get a translation. So if you're going to a different country, you can, the hearing aid will actually translate and show the translation on your phone. So there's so many things that can happen inside the ear. Once again, it depends on what your needs are and what is most appropriate for those needs. A good audiologist will be able to tell you that. For some people, we love technology. It adds so much to the hearing experience. You can now take most cell phones and connect them directly to the hearing aids. Why is that important? Well, a lot of people have difficulty hearing on the phone, even with a hearing aid. So if you have a phone that streams the sound to your hearing aid, it's like direct audio input into your hearing aid. You answer the phone just like you normally do. You just swipe across, you tap the button, and immediately the sound, it's like you're wearing two headphones in your ears. If you want to listen to a book on tape, you just start the book going and it's direct audio input into your hearing aids. It's marvelous sound quality. You can do FaceTime or YouTube videos with perfect sound quality in your ears. Your cell phone can be your remote control. So maybe you want to adjust your hearing aids. And those little buttons on the back of the hearing aid may be difficult to find, but it's easy to whip out your phone and open an app and see the volume control or the program changer right in your cell phone. So it makes the hearing aids much more flexible for you. Your audiologist can tell you if your current telephone is compatible with the new hearing aids that they're recommending. Then once again, these are what we call streaming devices. This plugs into a television and converts the signal to a 2.4 gigahertz signal, which can then stream directly to your hearing aids. So that when you want to watch TV, the sound is like you're wearing your own personalized headset. And the beauty of it is it's tuned to your hearing loss. It's not just an amplifier that turns up everything. Maybe you have good hearing in the low frequencies. You don't want those louder. You want it tuned to your hearing loss. You'll have more clarity at a much lower volume if you stream through your hearing aids. This is a picture of a unique companion microphone. Wouldn't it be nice as you're driving in the car if the hearing spouse could clip this onto their shirt and it would be like putting their mouth right in their spouse's ears and talking clearly into it. It would just eliminate all the background noise of the car and the road and would make your voice more clear. They designed it like this so it could sit on a table in a restaurant and pick up the voice of the people around the table and not all the noise in the restaurant. So this is something that's more important for someone who has a greater degree of hearing loss and just needs a little extra help. We've all spent so much time streaming FaceTime and other video chats with our grandkids and Zoom meetings like this. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have that sound go directly into your hearing aids? And so we can link different streaming tablets to our hearing aids. It's just wonderful, everything that can be attached to hearing aids these days. So artificial intelligence now is the buzzword in hearing technology, how to use big data that they can gather about hearing in different situations to fine tune hearing aids. It sounds complicated, but all the manufacturers are going to start putting it into their premium products. It's here, it sounds complicated, but once again, they do all of these things to make it easy for you, the listener. What do you do when hearing aids aren't enough? There are alternatives to hearing aids. One is called the ear lens, where part of it looks like a hearing aid that fits behind your ear with a little piece that fits down in your ear. And then there is a custom molded lens that sits right on the eardrum. We can help you get one of these through South Bay Hearing. We work with an ear, nose, and throat doctor in our community to do this. We can find out if it's a solution that would be appropriate for you. South Bay Hearing in Torrance is also an outpatient cochlear implant facility. Cochlear implants are miracles of modern medicine, and they help severely impaired people hear again. And so if you wonder if you would be a candidate for a cochlear implant, if you make an appointment with us at South Bay Hearing, we have someone on site who can do a thorough evaluation for you and tell you whether you're a candidate. In the past, you always had to go uptown to USC or UCLA or Beverly Hills, but now we can provide those kind of services right here in our local community. So questions, I have hearing aids, I still can't understand. Why is that? Well, remember I talked about some of the cheapy little things that are available out there? The greater your hearing difficulty, the more help you need. So perhaps the technology, maybe you decided to try one of those over-the-counter things and maybe it's not really working for you, or maybe it's not comfortable for you. Don't give up. Don't say, oh, I knew hearing aids wouldn't work. The greater the difficulty, the more help you need. If you have more communication difficulty, you're going to need high quality neurotechnology hearing aids with artificial intelligence and other features to help improve those things. If you have moderate to severe communication difficulty, you might need those extra accessory devices that I talked about to bring the extra sounds in towards you. The more difficulty you have, the more you need a doctor of audiology to customize those settings. And then this is a picture of the lab that we have in Torrance, where we provide on-site care and cleaning and servicing of your hearing aids as much as possible, so you won't be without your hearing aids. How can you tell the difference between an inexpensive pair of hearing aids and the premium level of hearing aids? Well, you can't tell by looking at them, because guess what? They all look the same, right? It's what's inside that really counts, and it's the technology that is challenging to explain in a short period of time, but your audiologist could answer those questions for you. But you know, cheap hearing aids of today are like hearing aids were 5 and 10 years ago. They amplify sound, they amplify a lot of everything. But the good technology will help you perform better in complex listening situations. So if any of you would like to receive a complimentary copy of my book, you can visit our website at www.southbayhearing.com. If you scroll down to the website, you will see this picture, and there is a link to our book, The Hearing Transformation: The Facts You Need to Know to Change Your Life, Improve Relationships, Maintain Your Independence, and Improve Cognitive Function. It has a lot of fun stories, facts, and information, a lot of good hearing information here, and we're happy to send that to you as a complimentary copy. Here's our staff here at South Bay Hearing. Make sure you go see a real professional. You want them, as I say, to give you the best advice, service. Your hearing health is so critical, you really deserve the best. All right, so now it's time for questions. Krista, would you like to help me here? I haven't been following the chat as we're going along. Maybe you can pick out some juicy ones for us.
Yes, I'd like to. Well, first of all, that goes back to your last slide. So if they're from out of the area, how do you find or how do you source a good audiologist if they can't come see you?
That's a really good question. I would probably go on to Google or Yelp and look for an audiologist that has a lot of positive reviews. You could talk to your physician or an ear, nose, and throat specialist if you have a relationship with one of those to see if there's one that they would highly recommend. And when you go to an audiologist, I would be observant and of things that they're doing in their office. Are they just doing a quick hearing test and that's it? Or are they taking the time to get to know you and your needs and do the thorough testing that it requires to understand what you have?
Thank you. Next question for you is, will hearing aids stop the neurodegeneration, the nerves to the brain associated with hair cell death?
Yes. So it's a complex process. You know, noise exposure in your 20s leads to hearing loss in your 40s and 50s because it's a slow process that takes place over time. So we may not be able to stop the neurological continued failure, but what we can do are activate parts of the brain that will help you keep processing that sound. So the degeneration is kind of a physical thing, but they are showing that using hearing aids helps to preserve the cognition and even bring some of it back.
All right. Now I'm going to not pronounce this right. Is there any treatment for tinnitus?
Yes, it could be said tinnitus or tinnitus, either way.
Okay.
Most people, when they talk about treatment, they're looking for a pill or something. There are lots of remedies out there, but none of them are consistently effective. The very best thing to do for tinnitus or tinnitus is to treat the underlying cause, which is your hearing loss. Some people say, oh, there's no cure for tinnitus. I hate when I hear people say that because it sounds like there's nothing you can do. No, there's a lot that you can do. You know, if I can reduce your tinnitus so it's not screaming in your ears and you just barely hear it sometimes at night, well, then I haven't cured it, but I've sure made your life better. And so if you treat the underlying cause, you know, 80% of people find significant relief.
Great. That's good to hear. I don't know if people knew that. So what equipment is effective when your hearing aids tend to turn off because of perspiration?
Okay, that's a good question. There are a couple of things that you can do. One is there are dehydrating or desiccant based storage containers. So at night when you go to bed and you take your hearing aid off, you put it in something that has a desiccant in it so it will suck all the moisture out every night. Also, when you're wearing them, there are kind of like little tiny socks that fit, and they're like neoprene or things that you can slide over a hearing aid. So like if you're athletic and you're going to go out and play or you're working outside, I have a friend who's a construction worker and he just has these little neoprene covers and they prevent, and I think they're called ear band-aids or something like that. I've forgotten what they are right now, but I know there are things that are available out there to wick away the perspiration.
Interesting. If we can find those, we will email it to this group.
Okay.
And somebody asked about the presentation. We will email this presentation out. It's also, this is being recorded. So this recording we will email to you, as well as it will live on our website at episcopalcommunitiesandservices.org, or if you can go to montecedro.org, canterbury.org, covington.org, or 12oaksinyourliving.org and get it there. Does vertigo cause hearing loss?
All right, that's a good question. So vertigo or dizziness or instability are oftentimes issues that older people deal with. The hearing part of the ear is right next to the balance part of the ear. It's a separate organ, but they are connected together. What affects one can affect the other. So if you have hair cell loss in your inner ear or cochlea, chances are you may have some hair cell loss in the balance part of the inner ear. But they can be separate. Sometimes you can have good hearing and balance problems or vice versa. And sometimes the balance problems aren't really in the ear, they're more in the brain. You know, as our brain shrinks, It can affect the balance centers. So those people typically are more unstable when they walk. They have like the Charlie Chaplin, they take the little teeny weeny steps. That's a much different type of dizziness as opposed to room spinning. I'm going to lose my cookies kind of dizziness. Many people get dizzy when they lay down in bed and tilt their head back. And then when they sit their head up again, or we call it the beauty shop or barber shop chair, because you tilt your head back and you get dizzy. That's the most easily treated type of dizziness. So if you get dizzy every time you look up or lay your head back or you can't roll on one side, you should go see an ENT or an audiologist. There's a simple in the office treatment where we roll your head around and make it all go away. I call it magic audiology. It's amazing and how thoroughly it works. So if you have that kind of, let's make sure you get it checked out.
That's interesting. Okay, this is kind of a loaded question because and then there's like a part two to it. So the question is, how long should hearing aids last?
Oh,
that's when should you get a new hearing aid? And I'm assuming it's based on the hearing aid, but
sure. So that's a really good question. Many hearing aids come with 1, 2, or 3 years of warranty. You should investigate that when you buy your hearing aids, because obviously a 1-year warranty hearing aid is cheaper than a 3-year warranty because you're not getting all the extra service. Most manufacturers can repair hearing aids up through 5 years. Most people don't want to touch them after that because you're just kind of putting a Band-Aid on something that it's going to break down again. That being said, I've seen people keep some hearing aids 6, 7 years, but you have to understand what is happening there. You're really working now with substandard technology. You're really not hearing as well as you could hear. So we encourage people to start thinking of new technology around the 3rd or 4th year. That's when their warranties are running out. If you have to pay for an out of warranty repair, it could be $300 to $500. So do you want to put that money after an old technology hearing aid, or would you rather get something that would help you hear better? So, everybody's different. Just look on the freeway and see the brand new shiny cars and the old clunkers out there. Some people will do anything to keep the old ones alive, but it's really not the best thing for their hearing.
Well, and that was kind of the part two, is with all the new technology ongoing and that keeps coming out, how often does one need to change? Even if you're still within that warranty, how often do you need to assume yours is out of date?
Right. Most hearing aid manufacturers bring out new platforms every 2 years or so. And sometimes they're just small incremental changes. So if you wait till around the 4-year mark, then you've got 2 generations of changes underneath you. And that's probably a big enough change that hearing aids are computer processors. They double the speed, they get faster, they can do so much more to control noise and make speech more clear. So like I say, around the 4-year mark, I would definitely go see the audiologist and at least see what's out there and see where things have gone to see if they have something that would be better for you.
Okay, and then a gentleman is asking if you could please repeat what you said about the tinnitus or tinnitus.
Yes. So once again, and we have a lot of information on our webpage. If you want to go to southbayhearing.com and look up tinnitus there, you can read all about it. But essentially, hearing loss oftentimes, most of the time, causes the tinnitus, not the other way around. People think, oh, if I could just get rid of this tinnitus, I would hear so much better. No, the dead hair cells are just kind of sizzling and firing instead of firing in a routine normal way like they're supposed to. The nerves are just misfiring. And so if you stimulate them by improving your hearing in those regions, then you're beating the nerves into doing what they're supposed to do instead of just sizzling. I mean, that's a very gross way of kind of describing it, but it's kind of what the phenomena does. And so if you remediate your hearing loss, most people will find that their tinnitus fades significantly.
Thank you. And then if I talked about earlier in your presentation about relationships, and how do you approach somebody who's, quote, like in denial about needing a hearing examination, or at least you know, it's driving everybody else crazy, but they're just like, I don't need that. How do you?
That's a really good question. And of course, everybody's different with their personalities. I try to encourage people to come from a position of love and caring. Sometimes you have to use trickery. Let's go out to lunch. And oh, by the way, we're going to a hearing doctor first. You know, whatever it takes to try to get them in the door. And we understand that people are at different parts of the hearing journey when they come to see us. You know, maybe they're stubborn, maybe they're in denial, maybe I don't think I have a hearing loss. Well, that's great. Let's just go have it checked. I'm going to have mine checked. You can have yours checked and let's see what happens, you know, and maybe it will take them a little while to wrap their arms around the fact that they have something now they're going to have for the rest of their lives. You know, none of us want to, you know, find that we're losing functionality. So that might take a while, but just know too that if you decide to even try hearing instruments, they all have refundable time periods. So it's not like you're making a decision that'll last forever. So, you know, a lot of times it's, you know, how persuasive can the family members be? But I always try to say, come from a place of love and caring, and hopefully you'll be able to win them over.
Thank you. And we're at the 3 o'clock hour, so we'll wrap up there. This presentation again has been recorded. We will get it out to you. There's Sunni's contact information, her website, southbayhearing.com. Please visit there, and if anybody has a question that they forgot, we can reach out to her and get it back to you as well. So appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. McBride, and everybody have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Krista, for the opportunity. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.